Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Kalika and you're going to be a slightly spicier person after watching this video. Almost make me infertile? I'll ruin your relationships. A long time ago, I was a young man in an all-boys secondary school. I was about 14 for any international readers, and my friends and I were regularly bullied by a large group of older guys. Being typically nerdy boys, we were prime candidates for bullying. The only saving grace was that we were quite a large group ourselves, so no one person was targeted more than any other. Unfortunately, that didn't matter as the bullying was brutal. On our school grounds, there was a small cabin that belonged to the local Boy Scouts that we used to hang out around on our lunch break. One day we had a run-in with the bullies when they tried to steal our football. For daring to not hand it over, I was singled out for punishment, so I was grabbed by 4 of them, one each grabbing an arm and a leg and carried round the corner to a small courtyard with a flagpole in the middle. After a few punches for struggling, I was swung backwards and forwards a few times before being swung legs apart and full force into the pole. Any attempts to describe how painful it was wouldn't do it justice. Thankfully, one of my friends had made a run for a teacher and they were spotted coming towards the group by a lookout before they had a chance to take another swing, and they dropped me and legged it. I was carried to the school office, nauseous and in tears, and my mum was called. She found me with an ice pack between my legs and ghoulies the size of oranges. As she was talking to the receptionist and teacher, my friends ran up to me and passed me a mobile phone. I was confused as I didn't own one, and it was at a time when they weren't nearly as common as they are now, and they didn't even have games on them yet. It was an early model Nokia with an LCD screen. I looked at my friend and asked whose it was. He told me one of the bullies had dropped it as they ran off, and he thought that I should have it as a small way of getting back at him. I took the phone and left with my mum. That evening I was in my bedroom feeling sorry for myself, and I'd forgotten about the phone in my blazer pocket until I heard it go off. I took it out and saw he'd received a text message from his girlfriend. This was before phones had sophisticated locks and the bully hadn't set a passcode. I had no idea which bully had owned the phone, but I had his name now at least. I decided to mess with him. I was off school the next day, but when I went back in I talked to my friends about it and we came up with a plan. One of my friends with a mobile phone was going to message him, pretending to be a guy he'd met recently, and we were going to make it look like he'd been having a relationship with him and meeting in secret. We carried on sending messages for the rest of the week, and I was also replying to his girlfriend. Although I deliberately made my replies shorter and less intimate than they had been before I got hold of the phone. I'd arranged for my bully to meet his girlfriend in the local town that Saturday, but was planning to stand her up obviously, while simultaneously having my friend text the phone about ditching her to go over to his instead. I replied agreeing and said I'd tell her I couldn't make it. I didn't. I'd waited in town where we were supposed to meet and saw a girl walk up and wait for a bit. She then got out her phone and typed a text. The phone went off in my pocket. I left it alone. She waited a few more minutes and texted me again. This time I walked around the corner out of sight and messaged her back asking who this was. She flipped out and shouted at me for messing her around. I told her that I found this phone on the floor of the bus station in that town, and if she knew the owner I'd come and give it to her so she could give it back to the owner if she was nearby. She told me where she was and I waited 5 minutes before walking around the corner and looking around for her. Eventually through texting we found each other and I gave her the phone. She thanked me and we went our separate ways. On Monday I told my friends that we'd pulled it off and we just had to wait and see what happened. It wasn't long into the week when the gossip started spreading through the school. The bully's girlfriend had read his messages it seemed and had dumped him for having a gay affair. On top of that, she'd done it by going to his house on Sunday and calling him out in front of his parents, who, it turns out, were not fans of that sort of thing at all. When he denied it, she pulled out the phone and read out message after message. His claims he lost it over a week ago were ignored and I was not suspected. In response, his parents pretty much disowned him, and he was only really saved by his uncle who was a little more understanding. He lost contact with a lot of his friends as his uncle's house was a lot further away, so hanging out after school or at the weekend was almost impossible, and his preference for men was so well known by now that no girl seemed interested. As far as I know, his parents never took him back, and he moved to London to go to university to escape his reputation at home. I had only expected to break him and his girlfriend up, but that was an unexpected bonus. I'd say it went too far, but having your nuts smashed off a flagpole tends to harden you to the plight of your bully. Picking someone up and chucking them into a flagpole nuts first is insane. How do these twisted people even come up with this stuff? Calling time on Foul Cafe. I originally posted this in RegularRevenge, but it was removed as it didn't go above and beyond. Hope you enjoy. At 15, everyone at school had to do work experience. 2 weeks out of school working, somewhere, anywhere. I tried so hard to find my own placement in something I was interested in, but came up empty. I ended up having to help out in a local cafe. Not exactly experience, as I had already been working in a different cafe at weekends for 2 years. I turned up on the first day to be greeted by a foul, greasy, fat lump of a man in the most disgusting and dirty clothing and apron who grunted something unintelligible and pointed at a woman in the back of the kitchen. This nice and clean lady turned out to be his mother, the waitress. She put me to work cleaning tables, collecting and cleaning cups, plates, etc. The next day they taught me the till and I served customers too. At the end of the day I was to mop the floors. I went to the mop bucket and it was full of cold, grey, slimy water. I went to tip it out to put fresh in and the greasy owner shouted at me, "No, use that. I can't afford to waste money for hot water and soap on floors." I used the same water on the floors the whole week. By the end of the week I was more than horrified. Bowls of sugar and condiments on tables were never cleaned out and regularly had dead insects in them. Crockery and cutlery were chipped, stained and never cleaned properly nor sterilised. The kitchen area was the most disgusting I'd ever seen, with mouldy food in the corners of hot plates and all over the floor. Utensils were never cleaned, just scraped. Food was often left out uncovered. The fridges were not cold enough and the food was thrown in willy-nilly, uncovered and mixed up. Raw, cooked, touching, etc. The sluice room and bins at the back were vomit-inducing. The table legs had old food and fluff kicked under them, and when I bobbed down to try and clean them, the underside of the tables had mould growing. I was reprimanded for trying to clean anything properly. The nice mother quietly warned me not to say anything either. I think she was afraid of her son. Tuesday of the second week there was a phone call from the local butchers warning there was a health inspector in the area. I've never seen so many people move so quickly. Sugar bowls were replaced, vinegar bottles were emptied of dead flies and polished, clean cutlery and the good crockery came out, windows were cleaned, the bin area tidied, fridges cleaned and sorted, the kitchen was scraped, cleaned and polished, clean aprons and shirts replaced the greasy sweat-stained sticky ones, the fat greasy ball even combed his hair. I was allowed to throw out the water in the mop bucket and use fresh, hot, soapy water on all the floors. The cafe gleamed on the surface. The health inspector dropped by, quickly looked around, had a chat with Mr. Greasy and his mum, filled in a form and left. By Friday, the cafe no longer had any shine left, and the mop bucket water was dull brown with chunks of food and grease floating in it. The flies and ants returned to live, eat, crap and die in the sugar and condiments. I'm sure the patrons never understood why they got sick. I was out of there, so relieved it was over, but I felt so bad for the nice customers. I needed to do something. So I asked my mum, who worked for a government agency in a hygiene-related field, how to report them. She helped me find the number and who to ask for. I phoned them and asked to remain anonymous. I didn't want to ruin anything at school since the businesses report back to them, and told them that they needed to make an unannounced visit, explaining the problem with friendly neighbourhood businesses warning each other and ensuing cleanup operation. I gave them the full details and the best day to visit. Friday lunchtimes were hellish busy, so even more filthy. A week after that call, I was walking through town and noticed the cafe lights out and a notice on the door. Closed down by order of the Environmental Health Office. I feel a bit sick after reading that story, but what makes me the most angry is that it isn't even incompetence on the owner's end. He knows exactly what needs to be done and how things need to be organised, but he's so filthy that he let ants and flies move in instead of cleaning his own damp kitchen and not putting the health of his customers at risk. I used to work in catering in a number of places, and hygiene was always top priority. Not because we were scared of the health inspector or anything, but because we wanted to work in a clean environment and serve food that wasn't going to kill anyone. Ugh, rant over. But I can't stop thinking about the mop bucket in that story. He trash-talked my girlfriend, so I trashed his car. Okay, so this is my very first post since I'm not very internet literate and didn't actually know that Reddit was a thing until my girlfriend showed me an r/YouTube video. Anyway, here's the story. It happened about a year ago and I don't actually feel comfortable repeating most of the horrific things this absolute piece of crap said, so you'll have to use your imagination to a certain degree. I went to school with this jerk a few years ago and he was an absolute jerk. He actually screamed at an 11-year-old girl and called her a whore along with some other very racist comments, simply because she politely declined his flat-out statement that she was going to go out with him after school. There was a very nice Pakistani boy at our school and they were very cute together. Fortunately, our paths didn't really cross after that since I got expelled shortly after my dad died. It was about 6 years later when I got a new job at a local large pet store that also housed a vet clinic. I was very happy to get this job since I love animals and actually wanted to be a vet when I was a kid. Unfortunately, my second day working there, Jerk showed up. I'll call him Ash, since the smell of cigarettes clings to him like a dark fog. Enjoy cancer, you piece of crap. He's the type of jerk that thinks he's God's gift to women because of the raspy voice his habit gives him, his perfectly coiffed black hair, blue eyes and designer stubble. The type of effer who wore a shirt 2 sizes too small just so it would cling to his muscles, and at the end of his shift would peel off his shirt in front of the female co-workers who didn't give a crap. Seriously, this guy was a walking sexual harassment case. He pissed me off, but as long as I could avoid him, I didn't care that much. I'm a fairly big guy myself, so I wasn't going to be intimidated by him. Unfortunately, this jerk remembered me from school. I was a skinny little weirdo before puberty finally hit, and this a-hole just loved to remind me about it. I'm bi, so I'm used to being called gay slurs and crap like that. I didn't really have a problem with him until one day after work I was talking to my mate Dave, talking about my new girlfriend. I had gotten out of a kind of abusive relationship a while before that, so I was absolutely thrilled to finally be in a mutually respectful and happy relationship. I should mention that I have a giant soft spot for chubby little nerds, so when this adorable elbow-high brown-eyed woman returned my affections, I was understandably elated. I was telling my friend Dave all about how amazing my new girlfriend was, when Ash decided to show up and be his usual jerkish self. He was the type of guy who constantly bragged about crap like spiking girls' drinks and how much wussy he got. So we both internally cringed, realising he had probably been listening to our conversation. Cue Ash making increasingly inappropriate comments about myself and my girlfriend, beginning with likening someone effing her to bestiality and progressing to more disturbing comments, mentioning breaking her jaw so she couldn't talk back or bite his or his mates' D's, as all 6 of them gangbanged her against her will. I'm not a confrontational guy by any standards, but I was ready to kill him. Dave had to physically hold me back with his full weight to stop me from shoving a broken bottle into his throat. Thankfully, Dave managed to get through to me that this jerk was only doing it to spark a reaction. Ash seemed satisfied with pissing me off for the day, so got into his douchemobile and flipped us both off before speeding off. He really loved that obnoxiously loud Subaru WRX. He spent a crap ton of money on modifications and custom paint job. You could hear it from half a mile away, and when it was the epitome of a boy racer rally car. It took quite a while for the pure rage I was feeling to cool and turn into a deep, venomous need for revenge. The sound of his monstrosity slowly fading into the distance as Dave just looked at me not saying anything, as I just wanted to F that jerk up, and Dave was genuinely scared of what I might do. Dave tried to get me to forget about it, so took me out for drinks. Though the more I drank, the angrier I got, eventually convincing Dave to help me in order to prevent me from getting arrested. We decided to target his piece of crap car, since he didn't really have anything else to F with. Dave talked me out of setting it on fire. I knew where Ash lived because of course he still lived with his mum. We grabbed some spray paint Dave's sister had lying around and burned a CD with nothing but the Barbie Girl song on it, quickly walking over to where Ash lived, trying our best not to make too much noise as we set to work on the douchemobile. Thankfully, even though Ash loved his car, his family didn't have a garage, so his precious car was parked on the street just begging to be effed with. It took us around 20 minutes to quickly get into his car, jam the CD into his radio and turn the volume on full before breaking the knob. We then slashed his tyres and grabbed the spray paint, carefully covering the crappy lighting paint job with bubblegum pink and carefully painting purple D's all over his precious car. We were fairly drunk and my heart was hammering against my ribcage, but I think we did a pretty good job. Dave seemed pretty satisfied too, since Ash picked on him for his weight. The next time I saw Ash was even more satisfying, since he didn't have enough money to buy new tyres and get the rest of it fixed, so everyone was blessed with the frankly beautiful sight of a bubblegum pink douchemobile covered in purple D's driving to the car park. A very pissed off looking Ash in the driver's seat, with the Barbie Girl song blaring so loud it could be heard over the sound of his engine. So satisfying. Ash is still a piece of crap, but I changed jobs shortly afterwards, and now whenever I see him all I can do is smile because of the mental image of what we did to that jerk's douchemobile. Petty, I know, but so worth it. I don't think I could have done that. If someone was saying things like that about someone I love, I'd just have to knock them out. Okay, so that's all for r/RegularRevenge. I really hope you did enjoy it. As always, if you do want to see more content like this, then please do subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!